राम राम सर्वेभ्यः हृत्पूर्वक नमस्काराः। गुरुरेव गतिर्गुरुमेव भजे, गुरुणैव सहास्मि नमो गुरवे। न गुरोः परमं शिशुरस्मि गुरोः, मतिरस्ति गुरौ मम पाहि गुरो। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानामालयं करुणालयम् नमामि भगवत्पादशङ्करं लोकशङ्करम्। सौन्दर्यलहरी कर्त्रे सर्वमङ्गलदायिने, शङ्कराचार्यवर्याय यतिराजाय ते नमः। शङ्कारूपेण मच्चित्तं पङ्कीकृतमबुद्ध्यया, किङ्करीयस्य सा माया शङ्कराचार्यमाश्रये। प्रह्लादवरदो देवो यो नृसिंहः परो हरिः, नृसिंहोपासकं नित्यं तन्नृसिंहगुरुं भजे। श्री सच्चिदानन्द शिवाभिनव्य नृसिंह भारत्यभिधान्यतीन्द्रान्, विद्यानिधीन् मन्त्रनिधीन् सदात्मनिष्ठान् भजे। मानव शम्भुरूपान् सदात्मध्याननिरतम्, विषयेभ्यः पराङ्मुखम् नौमि शास्त्रेषु निष्णातम् चन्द्रशेखर भारती। विवेकिनं महाप्रज्ञं धैर्यौदार्यक्षमानिधिं, सदाभिनवपूर्वन्तं विद्यातीर्थगुरुं भजे। भारती करुणापात्रं भारती पदभूषणं, भारती पदमारूढं भारती तीर्थमाश्रये। भारती तीर्थवर्यन्तं भक्तहृत्तापनाशनं, भवभीतिहरं देवं भावये सततं हृदि। विद्या विनय संपन्नौ वीतरागौ विवेकिनं, वन्दे वेदान्त तत्त्वज्ञौ विधुशेखर भारतीम्। अनन्त गुण संपन्नामनन्ताभिधयाश्रुताम्, अनन्त ज्ञानदात्रीं तां मातरं प्रणुमो वयम्। गैर्वाण्या संविबोधेन जीवनं मौल्यसंयुतं, या करोत्तान्नमाम्यम्बां शारदामूर्तरूपिणी। कलाभ्यां चूडालङ्कृतशशिकलाभ्यां निजतपः फलाभ्यां, भक्तेषु प्रकटितफलाभ्यां भवतु मे। शिवाभ्यामस्तोकत्रिभुवन शिवाभ्यां, हृदि पुनर्भवाभ्याम् आनन्दस्फुरदनुभवाभ्यान्नतिरियम्। Astu. So we completed till 77, but we have to see the meaning of 77. Okay. So I will chant 77 once. Then Charu, you can chant it once because we have completed learning this, but we have to deal with the meaning. बुद्धिस्थिरा भवितुमीश्वरपादपद्मसक्ता वधूर्विरहिणीव सदा स्मरन्ती, सद्भावना स्मरण दर्शन कीर्तनादि सम्मोहितेव शिव मंत्र जपेन बिन्ते। चारु
बुद्धिस्थिरा भवितुमीश्वरपादपद्मसक्ता वधूर्विरहिणीव सदा स्मरन्ती सद्भावना स्मरण दर्शन कीर्तनादि सम्मोहितेव शिवमन्त्र जपेन विन्ते.
Uttamam. So the third and fourth line, there is no pause. Buddhihi sthira. So here, last time also, I told you, I tried to change, but in this font, the sthira is seen like this only. Don't get confused. You can see in Devanagari, if you're reading, please see please look at this particular letter very clearly. There is no rakara there. It is sthira. Buddhihi sthira. Buddhisthira. Two sirs are there. भवितुमीश्वर पाद पद्मसक्ता वधूः विरहिणीव सदा स्मरन्ति सद्भावना स्मरण दर्शन कीर्तनादि सम्मोहितेव शिवमन्त्र जपेन विन्ते. Here, buddhihi, that is the intellect or the mind, is compared to a vadhuhu, that is a newly wedded bride. So a bride is called vadhuhu and who is just newly married. So the buddhi is compared to that. So let us see how that description is. Now buddhihi is in strilinga. Therefore, if you see in Sanskritam, you will see that all the adjectives follow the linga vibhakti vachana of the visheshya. That is the noun being described. The adjectives follow the same gender, linga vibhakti vachana. So because buddhihi here is strilinga, all the metaphors given and all the comparisons given are also strilinga words and in strilinga only. Buddhihi sthira. Sthira means something which is very steadfast, without wavering, very firm. Now, virahini vadhuhu iva Ishvara pada padmasakta sada smaranti buddhihi Shiva mantra japena sammohita iva sthira bhavitum sadbhavana smarana darshana kirtanadi binte. A very beautiful description again. Virahini vadhuhu iva. Virahini means the one who is separated from her husband. Separated in the sense, maybe the husband has gone out of station or something like that. So they are not together. Virahini vadhuhu iva. Like a newly wedded bride who is separated from her husband. Then Ishvara pada padma sakta sada smaranti. So when the description is that when a bride has just married and then due to some contingency has to stay separately from her husband. And also these are the days, when we have these descriptions, there are no WhatsApp calls and video calls and messages like that. So we should go back to those days when communication was by, maybe a letter which was given and also when people went out of station, this was even, when we didn't have even telephones, think of those days. Or even now, think of the days, when just reminded of this, when people in our armed forces, and we should really salute them. We hear of instances where they are newly married and or even later when they have children and a family, when they are posted on the borders where they don't have connectivity. We might have Wi-Fi and all here in our homes. Now for our children of today, imagining a life without Wi-Fi connectivity is becoming difficult. But when we grew up, we didn't have this level of connectivity and technology. But even now, we have those families who are sacrificing their comforts, the armed forces, to be in the borders. And when they are in those, those mountainous regions and in those regions where there's no Wi-Fi, they can't even contact their family. So how much the families must be undergoing for us to stay safe in the country, we must always salute those families, those wives, those children, and of course our armed forces who do so much for us. So just this verse reminded me of that, where just imagine a situation like that, where you can't contact, and then you're constantly thinking of that beloved person, your family member. So Virahini Vadhuhu Iva, like a newly wedded bride who is separated from her husband. What happens in such a situation? Imagine yourself, if we are in such a situation, what do? We constantly think of that person, right? So here the buddhi, intellect, like a newly wedded bride who is separated from her husband and who has no contact with her husband. That is what I am adding now, because I think in this context, now we have to, especially for the younger generation, we should actually educate them on what those times were when we didn't have this kind of connectivity and Wi-Fi and video calls and instant messaging. So then in such a situation, you constantly think of your beloved, the beloved person. Ishvara, the intellect in such a way, Ishvara pada padma sakta sada smaranti. The intellect is constantly thinking, sada smaranti. It is in continuous tense, always remembering without a break. There is nothing else that the buddhi thinks of. The buddhi, the mind, the intellect is totally devoted to thinking constantly about what? Ishvara Pada Padma Sakta. That is completely committed or to the lotus feet of Parameshwara. Ishvara Pada, lotus feet, Padma. Padma, lotus, Pada, feet. So the one whose intellect is firmly stationed or fixed in nothing but the lotus feet of Parameshwara, Sada Smaranti, always constantly remembering. So this is what in Bhagavad Gita Krishna says, Ananya Chintanam. Multiple times, Anuchintayan, he uses that word. Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu mam anusmara yudhya cha, anusmara anuchintayan, and ananyaha chintayanto mam ye janav paryupasate tesham nityabhiyuktanam yogakshemam vahamyaham. This anuchintanam, anusmaranam, ananya chintanam, that is what Krishna stresses in Bhagavad Gita. The same thing Acharya Shankara is telling us here with a beautiful analogy also. So if that anusmaranam, ananyaha chintanam, what Krishna says is constant thinking of only that, nothing else, doesn't mean we don't engage in our duty. Yat karoshi yadashnasi yadjuhoshi dadasi yat yattapasyasi kaunteya tatkurushva madarpanam tasmat sarveshu kaleshu mam anusmara yudhya cha. What a beautiful message. Krishna says, therefore, in all times, mam anusmara, think of me constantly. Yudhya cha, he doesn't stop there. He doesn't stop mam anusmara, just think of me. Yudhya, do your duty. There, the duty of Arjuna as a Kshatriya is to protect dharma. It is a dharma yuddha. They did not initiate the war, but when someone is attacking, they cannot keep quiet. So they have to fight for the sake of dharma. That is his duty as a Kshatriya. Not that he was interested in getting that property or the kingdom. So that is why it is, for the Pandavas, it was dharma yuddha. They were, the Kauravas wanted the war, and it was their duty to defend dharma. And all the Sanatana dharma and the parampara, which had been coming from generations together. So Krishna urges Arjuna to do his duty there. Mamanusmara yudhya cha. So constantly thinking of Bhagavan. Ishvara pada padma sakta sada smaranti buddhihi sthira. Always thinking of the lotus feet of Parameshwara. And like Bhagavan Krishna says that by thinking of Parameshwara constantly, we must engage in our duties. Nishkam karma. Therefore, my buddhi, how is it? It is always thinking, sada smaranti, and it is sthira, it is not chanchala. The buddhi is not wavering. Once I think of my car, then I think of my house, then I think of something else. So not that way. The buddhi is constantly fixed in the lotus feet of Parameshwara. Even as the grihastha, while doing your duties towards the family, doing the duties towards everyone. As a grihastha, one has many duties and responsibilities towards other ashramas in society and towards society elders, etc. But constantly engaging in that, but thinking of the lotus feet of Parameshwara constantly. Then Sadbhavana Smarana Darshana Kirtanadi Sammohiteva Shiva Mantra Japena Vinte. Now, Sadbhavana Smarana Darshana Kirtanadi. Sat refers to the absolute truth. The Vedas also clearly say Ekam Sat. The truth is one. And we call it by different names, whether we visualize that absolute truth as Parameshwara, Krishna, Bhagavati, Ganesha, Subramanya, whoever. But the truth is one. Sat Bhavana. Sat, absolute truth. Bhavana, contemplation on that absolute truth. Smarana is remembering constantly. Darshana, visualizing. Kirtanadi, that is, Kirtana is singing the glory or the praises. Like what if we recite Shivanandalahari shlokas, that is also a Kirtana of Bhagavan. So constantly engaged in thinking about Sat, contemplating about that ultimate truth, remembering, visualizing, and constantly singing the praises or singing the glories, chanting the glories of Bhagavan through this. Sadbhavana, Smarana, Darshana, Kirtanadi. In Gita also there is one verse where Krishna says how his bhaktas are constantly engaged in thinking about him, in discussing about him. One example we can think of is the Gopikas. No better example than that. They are constantly engaged in their duties as Gopikas, milking the cows and churning butter, taking care of the kids and the household, and as Gopabalas, taking care of the cows, taking them outside for grazing, etc. So in Nandagokulam, everybody is constantly doing their duties, but they're only thinking of Krishna all the time. And they are speaking about Krishna. There are descriptions in verses and in Bhagavatam where the Gopikas see Yamuna river as Krishna, the trees as Krishna, the others, they see Krishna in everyone, in their children, in their husbands, in other friends, and in other Gopikas, in the cows, in Vrindavana, in the trees, and always singing the glory and thinking, oh, Krishna did this, Krishna did that. So always thinking of Amachitta Madgata Pranaha Bodayantah Parasparam Kathayantascha Mam Nityam Tushyanti cha Ramanti cha. Machittaha Madgata Pranaha Bodhayantah Parasparam Kathayantascha Mam Nityam, always Tushyanti, they are satisfied, Ramanti, they enjoy in that satsanga of praising Bhagavan. So Sadbhavana Smarana Darshana Kirtanadi Sammohiteva. So as though they are deluded. Deluded by what? By constantly thinking of Bhagavan. So delusion, that is completely overcome by devotion towards Bhagavan through Sadbhavana Smarana Darshana Kirtanam. There are descriptions again of Krishna where when he plays the flute, then listening to that, it is like an infatuation with the melody of the flute of Bhagavan. Nothing else one can think of. One is completely immersed in that, forgetting everything else and oneself. So even in the spiritual path, when one enjoys the nectar of the bliss of this kirtanam, bhajanam, darshanam of Bhagavan, it is a sammohita. That is, it is like as though deluded, because you are completely immersed in that bliss. Shiva mantra japena, by chanting Shiva mantra repeatedly, vinte, attains. So the intellect, by constantly thinking of Parameshwara, being sthira, firmly fixed on the lotus feet of Parameshwara, and only interested in the lotus feet of Parameshwara, and constantly thinking how, like a newly wedded bride who is separated from her husband. Virahini refers to the separation. And this description we find in Bhakti, when you're explaining Bhakti or dealing with Bhakti Shastram, there are various ways in which, especially in our Sanatana Dharma, Bhagavan is approached. Now, one approach is that Nayaka Nayaki Bhava, where Jivatma is the Nayaki and Nayika, and Paramatma is the Nayaka. That is what we see in Gita Govindam. In Jayadeva, beautifully, he is also, we are all, it is the same path. The goal is same, attaining Paramatma, Shivanandam. There, Krishna, Paramatma is represented as Krishna, and Radha is the Jivatma. And Sakhi plays a very important role. She is the Guru. And Sakhi is given such an important role because Sakhi is the one who leads the Jivatma towards the Paramatma. Therefore, in our Sanatana Dharma, Guru is given so much of importance. And only with the Guru's grace, this can happen. Guru's grace, not necessarily, by Guru physically being present in front of us, that also happens definitely. But even just the grace of a Guru, wherever your Guru is, wherever we are, they are not bound by these physical and geographical limitations. Only through Guru's grace will one attain Paramatma. The reason I say this is, this particular verse reminded me of the 8th Ashtapadi of Gita Govinda, where Sakhi, the Guru, is describing to Krishna that Radha is separated from Krishna, and she is craving for Krishna. And we have many, texts which tell us that the Jivatma should crave like that for the Paramatma. And similarly, it's mutual. The Paramatma also has equal compassion, affection, and wants every Jivatma to attain that Shivanandam. So it is mutual there. There, the Sakhi beautifully describes Radha's state to Krishna, because Radha is separated. She says, Madhava manasija vishika bhayadiva bhavanaya tvayi lina sa virahe tava dina. The same viraha bhava, the separation which we see here in the lot of Ashtapadis in Gita Govindam, that is described of the separation of Jivatma from Paramatma, and how that Jivatma craves to ultimately attain that Shivanandam and union with Paramatma, ultimately attain that self-realization or attain Paramatma. Sa virahe tava dina. Hey Krishna, Radha is in a very pitiable state, virahe, because she is separated from you. So this viraha bhavana, or this vipralamba shringara, that is love in separation. When the Jivatma is separated from the Paramatma and is craving for union, that is given a lot of significance in this Bhakti Shastram. That is how a Jivatma should crave to attain Paramatma. Vadhuhu virahini vadhuhu iva. So that is a beautiful description we have in Gita Govindam. It was a similar analogy in this verse, so which is why I thought I should briefly mention that also to you. And we will go through the meaning. Once we will read the meaning, and then we will read the verse. May my intellect become steady and unwavering, firmly devoted to the lotus feet of Ishvara. Just as a newly married bride, separated from her husband, is consumed by thoughts of him, longing for his presence, may my mind remains constantly immersed in the remembrance of Shiva. Through noble contemplation, this is Sadbhavana Smarana Darshana Kirtanadi. Through noble contemplation, meditation, vision, and singing his praises, may I be overwhelmed as though in a divine trance. Sammohiteva, divine trance. We see even in Rasa Leela, the Gopikas experience this. And all the Devatas and everyone witnessing, Rishis witnessing the Rasa Leela also experienced this. They say that Rishis also, with so many years of penance, they started praying, Krishna, when will we get the trance and union which the Gopikas got with you? So even they worshipped the Gopikas. Engrossed in the unceasing chanting of Shiva's mantra, May I attain the bliss of his presence, where my heart knows no separation from him. Okay, so let us just chant this verse once. बुद्धिस्थिरा भवितुमीश्वरपादपद्मसक्तावधूर्विरहिणीव सदा स्मरन्ती सद्भावना स्मरणदर्शनकीर्तनादिसम्मोहितेव शिवमन्त्रजपेन विन्ते. Okay, next. Charu. सदुपचार विधिष्वनुबोधिताम्
सदुपचार विधिष्वनुबोधिताम् सदुपचार विधिष्वनुबोधिताम्
सविनयां सुहृदं समुपाश्रिताम्
सविनयां सुहृदं समुपाश्रिताम् सविनयां सुहृदं समुपाश्रिताम्
मम समुद्धर बुद्धिमिमां प्रभो
मम समुद्धर बुद्धिमिमां प्रभो मम समुद्धर बुद्धिमिमां प्रभो
वरगुणेन नवोढवधूव
वरगुणेन नवोढवधूमिव वरगुणेन नवोढवधूमिव
सदुपचार विधिष्वनुबोधिताम्. Dhi and dhi mahapranas. We don't split in the middle. Savinayam suhridam samupashritam mama samuddhara buddhimimam prabho. Note the mahapranas there. Varagunena navodhavadhumiva. सदुपचार विधिष्वनुबोधिताम् सविनयां सुहृदं समुपाश्रिताम्
सदुपचार विधिष्वनुबोधिताम् सविनयां सुहृदं समुपाश्रिताम् सदुपचार विधिष्वनुबोधिताम् सविनयां सुहृदं समुपाश्रिताम्
समुद्धर बुद्धिमिमां प्रभो वरगुणेन नवोढवधूमिव
मम समुद्धर बुद्धिमिमां प्रभो वरगुणेन नवोढवधूमिव मम समुद्धर बुद्धिमिमां प्रभो वरगुणेन नवोढवधूमिव
तदुपचार विधिष्वनुबोधिताम् सविनयां सुहृदं समुपाश्रिताम् मम समुद्धर बुद्धिमिमां प्रभो वरगुणेन नवोढवधूमिव
सदुपचार विधिष्वनुबोधिताम् सविनयां सुहृदं समुपाश्रिताम् मम समुद्धर बुद्धिमिमां प्रभो वरगुणेन नवोढवधूमिव.
So we can see how Shankaracharya is taking these themes. So Bhagavad Pada Shankara in a very beautiful way. Now, why does he have to give so many analogies for us commoners to understand? Shankaracharya is Parameshwara himself. He came down out of compassion to the earth when at a time when, Sanatana Dharma really needed to bring back that focus and, that crux, the soul of Sanatana Dharma on Vedanta that needed to be brought back. And when, there was a lot of ajnana everywhere. So he dispelled that ignorance. And therefore he composed, like we have discussed before, the Prasthanatraya, Bhashyas, and then Adhyatmika works. And then he composed stotrams for everyone to understand and appreciate. He is giving us so many analogies, if you see, through these verses. And like I said, please, all of you start thinking, writing about this, where he makes us to try to understand, like Ankolam Nija Bija Santati Rayas Kantopalam, in that beautifully he describes what is bhakti. And by giving us examples from nature. And then he is describing how that buddhi should constantly be thinking of Paramatma. What Krishna also has described in Gita Ananya Chintanam, he is describing that. And in the previous verse, he gave the analogy, it is called Upamalankara, of a newly wedded bride but separated from her husband, who is constantly thinking of her husband. And he continues the analogy to this verse also. So he tries to make us understand how that love should be to Paramatma in various ways by giving us various analogies from day-to-day life, from nature. So this also, it elevates that alankara, or the beauty of the kavyam, the various analogies. And also for us, it is like a message for us to understand, to drive home the point. Analogy is a very beautiful way of making someone else understand, because Shankaracharya is Shiva, he has attained Shivanandam, but we are still in this path. So to make us understand, he gives us all these wonderful analogies. So again here, the analogy is to buddhi only. Prabho, O Bhagavan, Sadupachara vidhishu anubodhitam sa vinayam suhridam samupashritam mama imam buddhim, my buddhi, varagunena navodha vadhumiva samuddhara. Hey Prabhu, please elevate or uplift my buddhi, mama buddhi mimam. How is my buddhi? And in this process, he also tells us the importance of chitta shuddhi. Unless that buddhi has that chitta shuddhi, it is not a gateway for attaining Paramatma or for visualizing Paramatma. So he again and again stresses on the importance of chitta shuddhi. Hey Prabhu, mama buddhi mimam, samuddhara. Hey Prabhu, please uplift this buddhi of mine, intellect. How is it? All the other words are describing buddhi. Sadupachara vidhishu anubodhitam. Sat upachara. Sat means one way of understanding. Sat is again Paramatma. That is, I told you, that ultimate truth. Upachara, worshipping. Vidhishu, in the various ways to worship Paramatma. Anubodhitam, it has been taught, or it has been trained well in the various methods of worshipping Paramatma. Now, Sat word can also mean good in the Laukika sense, but here Sat means Paramatma. So, Sadupachara, the mind, this mind of mine is cultured, has been trained in the various ways of worshipping Paramatma, showing the importance of culturing, or that training the mind, purifying the mind. That is important here. So all these puja vidhana, the stotram, parayanam, singing, the glory, all this is for that chitta shuddhi. Sadupachara vidhishu anubodhitam. This mind of mine, which has been trained well in the methods of worshipping you. And there are various methods we know: Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atma Nivedanam. There are various kinds of bhakti. And there are various ways of worshipping Paramatma also. Dhyanam, then bhajanam, archana, so many ways. Sadupachara vidhishu anubodhitam. The mind which is trained well in various ways of worshipping you. Sa vinayam, which is humble. This is very, very important quality for a bhakta. Because without humility, there is no way one can progress either in the Laukika or Paramarthika path, right? So that ego, pride, this is a huge stumbling block in one's life. So vidya dadati vinayam. That is the characteristic or a mark of a person who has vidya, is that vinaya. Without vinaya, nothing can be achieved. Sa vinayam stresses the importance of humility in this path and in any paths. For anything, one needs to be humble to surrender to one's guru. One needs to have that humility, conquering one's ego. Only then will one attain Paramatma. Will one even become eligible for attaining Paramatma. Sa Vinayam, my buddhi is also already humble. Suhridam, it is pure. Samupashritam, it has taken refuge in you. Like, you know how Arjuna surrenders in the battlefield to Krishna. Shishyasteham shadhimam tvam prapannam. Hey Krishna, I am your Shishya. I have completely surrendered to you. Sharanagati. Shankaracharya also stresses on Sharanagati many times. I've surrendered to you. I know no one other than you. I don't know what is right and wrong. You guide me. I'm completely surrendering myself to you. Not just saying it by words, but actually feeling it. So Samupashritam, I have taken refuge in you. Like that, Vibhishana also surrendered, right? When he left Ravana's camp and he came and surrendered to Rama on the shore. And he said, Rama, please accept me. And then Rama declares, Sakrudeva prapannaya tavasmi tichayachate abhayam sarvabhutebhyo dadamyetat vratam mama. Even once if a person says, I am yours and surrenders, I will protect that person. So he accepted Vibhishana, the Sharanagati, importance of that. Samupashritam, this mind has taken refuge in you. Then Vara gunena. Vara means desirable or good or virtuous qualities. It is this mind is full of virtuous qualities. Navodha vadhumiva, like a newly wedded bride. Now here again the analogy of a newly wedded bride, which is which you can relate to each of these descriptions. Savinayam, that is with humility. Now, these are the ideal qualities which Shankaracharya is describing here. Suhridam, who is very good at heart, and Samupashritam, Varagunena, which has all virtuous qualities. Navodha vadhumiva, like a newly wedded bride. My mind has completely surrendered to you. I seek refuge only in you and in no one else. Therefore, Hey Prabhu, Mama Buddhi Mimam Samudhara. Therefore, Hey Prabhu, please uplift this mind of mine. So that is the prayer in this verse. O Bhagavan, uplift this intellect of mine which has now taken refuge in you. Just as a newly wedded bride is guided with care, let my mind be properly instructed in the righteous ways of worshipping you. Endowed with humility, purity, and devotion, may it remain steadfast in your service. With your divine virtues, nurture and elevate my understanding so that it may always be committed to you alone. Sadupachara vidhishvanubodhitam Savinayam suhridam samupashritam Mama samudhara buddhi mimam prabho Varagunena navodhavadhu miva Uttamam. Now, Shriya, the next 79th verse, this is in Shardula Vikriditam. We have come across this chandas before. 79 and 80 are in Shardula Vikriditam. Shardula Vikriditam chandas. Nityam Nityai Yogi Manas Sarojadala.
Nityai Yogi Manas Saroja. Nityai Yogi Manas Saroja.
We will stand till Dala. We are actually not supposed to split there, but big pada, big line. So we will split it the first time. Nityai yogi manas sarojadala.
Nityai Yogi Manas Sarojadala. Nityai Yogi Manas Sarojadala.
Sanchara kshamastvatkramaha.
Sanchara Kshamastvatakramaha. सञ्चारक्षमस्त्वत्क्रमः
शम्भो तेन कथम्
शम्भो तेन कथं शम्भो तेन कथं
कठोरयमराड्वक्षः कवाटक्षतिः
कठोरयमराट्वक्षः कठारक्षतिः
वक्षः
कठोर
कवाट वक्षः कवाटक्षतिः वक्षः कवाट the chest of the door of the chest वक्षः यमराड्वक्षः कवाटक्षतिः
कठोरयमराट्वक्षः कवाटक्षतिः कठोरयमराट्वक्षः कवाटक्षतिः
अत्यन्तं मृदुलन्त त्वदङ्घ्रियुगलम्
अत्यन्तं मृदुलं त्वदङ्घ्रियुगलम् अत्यन्तं मृदुलं त्वदङ्घ्रियुगलम्
चिन्तय चिन्हा मे मनश्चिन्तयत्येतल्लोचनगोचरम्
हा मे मनश्चिन्तयत्वेतल्लोचनगोचरम्
Just a
हा
second. Ha me. I think it's a very, a big line. So we will just split it up for everyone's benefit. Ha me manaha chintayat chintayatyetat lochana gocharam. So we don't split there. Therefore, there is a hyphen there also. Ha me manash chintayatyetal lochana gocharam. Till there we will chant. Ha me manash chintayat Tyetallochana-gocharam.
हा मे मनश्चिन्तयत्येतल्लोचनगोचरम् हा मे मनश्चिन्तयत्येतल्लोचनगोचरम्
Kuru vibho
कुरु विभो कुरु विभो
hastena संवाहये
हस्तेन संवाहये हस्तेन संवाहये
Tamam, we should just be careful about the words here. Nityam yogi. So here Nityam yogi, when we combine Nityai yogi, we chant it combining that way. Nityai yogi manas saroja dala. If you split the words like that, it's easier, but you're not supposed to pause. But when you know the constituent words, it is easier when you chant. Nityai yogi manas saroja dala sanchara kshamaha tvatkramaha. Together, Nityai yogi manas saroja dala sanchara kshamas tvatkramaha. Shambho Mahaprana Tena Katham Anuswara followed by Ka here. So Katham Kathora Yamarad Vakshah Kavata Kshatihi. Kathora Yamarad Vakshah, that Visarga followed by Ka. Kathora Yamarad Vakshah Kavata Kshatihi. That is Jihva Mulya. We have learned that before. Atyantam Mridulam. We should not say Mrudulam. Mridulam. Visarga, Anuswara followed by the Mridulantwadangri. We make it the Sandhi, Anuswara Sandhi. Mridulantwadangri. Gha Mahaprana. Some texts say Tavangri. Both are correct. Anything, both we accept. Twadangri Yugalam. Ha me मनश्चिन्तयत्येतल्लोचन गोचर मनः चिन्तयत्येतत् लोचन गोचरम मनश्चिन्तयत्येतल्लोचन गोचरम अनुस्वारा followed by ka लोचन गोचरं कुरु. So again sandhi there. Vibho bha mahaprana hastena samvahaye. You can instead of samvahaye is also correct. But Anuswara followed by Va, consistently we are chanting. So, Samvahaye. We will do one pada at a time. Nityam yogi manas sarojadala sanchara kshamastvatkramaha.
नित्यै योगी मनः सरोजदलसञ्चारक्षमस्त्वत्क्रमः नित्यै योगी मनः सरोजदलसञ्चारक्षमस्त्वत्क्रमः
शम्भो तेन कथं कठोरयमराड्वक्षः कवाटक्षतिः.
शम्भो तेन कथं कठोरयमराट्वक्षः कवाटक्षतिः शम्भो तेन कथं कठोरयमराट्वक्षः कवाटक्षतिः
अत्यन्तं मृदुलं त्वदङ्घ्रियुगलं हा मे मनश्चिन्तयत्येतल्लोचनगोचरं कुरु विभो.
अत्यन्तं मृदुलं त्वदङ्घ्रियुगलं हा मे मनश्चिन्तयत्येतल्लोचनगोचरं कुरु विभो अत्यन्तं मृदुलं त्वदङ्घ्रियुगलं हा मे मनश्चिन्तयत्येतल्लोचनगोचरं कुरु विभो
हस्तेन संवाहये.
हस्तेन संवाहने हस्तेन संवाहये हस्तेन संवाहये
Uttamam. Now we'll do the entire verse. Slowly, all of you listen to every word carefully. Once you know the meaning and the splitting of words, it becomes easier. Nityai yogi manas sarojadala sanchara kshamastvatkramaha. शम्भो तेन कथं कठोरयमराड्वक्षः कवाटक्षतिः. अत्यन्तं मृदुलं त्वदङ्घ्रियुगलं हा मे मनश्चिन्तयत्येतल्लोचनगोचरं कुरु विभो. हस्तेन संवाहये.
नित्यै योगी मनः सरोजदलसञ्चारक्षमस्त्वत्क्रमः शम्भो तेन कथं कठोरयमराट्वक्षः कवाटक्षतिः अत्यन्तं मृदुलं त्वदङ्घ्रियुगलं हा मे मनश्चिन्तयत्येतल्लोचनगोचरं कुरु विभो हस्तेन संवाहये
Uttamam, Shriya. Very good. Nityam yogi manas sarojadala sanchara kshamaha tvatkramaha shambho tena katham कठोरयमराड्वक्षः कवाटक्षतिः. अत्यन्तं मृदुलं त्वदङ्घ्रियुगलं हा मे मनः चिन्तयति एतत् लोचनगोचरं कुरु विभो हस्तेन संवाहये. शम्भो त्वत्क्रमः नित्यं योगी मनस्सरोजदलसञ्चारक्षमः तेन कठोरयमराड्वक्षः कवाटक्षतिः कथम् अत्यन्तं मृदुलं त्वदङ्घ्रियुगलं मे मनः चिन्तयति हा विभो एतत् लोचनगोचरं कुरु हस्तेन संवाहये. Very beautiful way Bhagavad Pada is expressing to Parameshwara, describing the tender lotus feet of Parameshwara. Now, Shambho, He Shambho, Tvat Kramaha, your Kramaha is your footsteps. How are they? Nityam Yogi Manas sarojadala sanchara kshamaha. He Shambho, your footsteps tvat kramaha. Nityam, always. Where do they go? What are they used to rather? Yogi manas sarojadala sanchara kshamaha. So your footsteps, tvat kramaha, they are always used to, or they always have the capacity, or they are fit for yogi manas sarojadala sanchara. They are always fit for moving around. Where? In the manaha, the mind, saroja dala. That is saroja, manas saroja. Here the mind is the lotus, and not just the mind is the lotus, but saroja dala, the petals of lotus. Now we have all seen a lotus flower. Just imagine how tender, how those petals are very soft. And the mind of yogis is like that. It is also extremely soft and tender. So my guru used to say how the mind of yogis, it just melts seeing the suffering of others, which is they are always constantly only wishing for the welfare of humanity. They never do anything, even if they have the power capacity to do something for themselves with their tapas. All they do is they only protect humanity and they only seek the welfare of others with their tapas. They don't use it even an iota of their tapas, they don't use it for their own sake. Only those people can be called yogis, such great souls. So your feet, O Parameshwara, your feet are used to always moving around in the lotus petals of the minds of the yogis. So also describing that the yogis with their lotus petal like minds, they constantly are thinking about Parameshwara, Ananya Chintanam. They, without a break, their mind only, it's firmly fixed in Parameshwara. And they constantly think of Parameshwara only without wavering, unwavering. So in your feet, they are used to moving around in the minds of such yogis, the minds which are as soft, as pure, as tender as the lotus petals. Shambho, in such a situation, O Bhagavan, Tena Katham Kathora Yamarad Vakshah Kavatakshatihi. So your feet, which are only used to moving around in the lotus petal-like minds of yogis, how did they strike that door of the chest of that terrible Yama? So we have learned about the story where in order to protect Markandeya, then Ishvara comes, and when he is embracing the Shivalinga and Yama is about to fasten his noose on the neck of the boy, then our Ishvara comes there and strikes Yama on his chest. So that is, we have referred to this in the previous verses. There is a reference to the story. The same story is being referred to here also. How did that tender foot of yours, those tender feet, how did you strike the, here Vakshah Kavata means the chest of Yama is compared to a door. So Kathora is very terrible, terrific. How did those feet strike at the chest or the door of the chest of Yama? Atyantam mridulam tvadangri yugalam. The pair of feet are atyantam mridulam. They are extremely tender and soft. Ha means exclamation. Me manaha chintayati. My mind thinks. How did, this is what my mind thinks. How did those tender feet of yours, which are atyantam mridulam, how did they strike at that terrific hard door of Yama's chest, O Parameshwara? How did you do that? Then, Lochana Gocharam Kuru Vibho, please show me that, let me have darshan of that pair of lotus feet of yours. Please make them visible to my eyes. Lochana is eyes, eye. Gochara is visible. So because Unless you are in that divine state, you won't get that visualization of Paramatma. So, hey Paramatma, please make me please make me visualize, or please make your lotus feet visible to my eyes. Lochana gocharam kuru. Vibho, oh all pervading Paramatma. Why? Hastena samvahaye. I will gently massage your lotus feet with my hands, because that atyantam mridulam twadanghriyugalam, you use that for what? For striking at the kathora yamarad vakshah kavata. You struck that very terrific, terrible, hard chest of Yama, that which is like a door, a very strong door. You used your feet to strike that chest of Yama. But your feet are always used to what? Only moving around in the lotus petal like minds of these yogis. So, hey Parameshwara, let me see that feet of yours. Please make them visible to my eyes. I will gently massage them. And there is another reference in another work where one devotee, it seems he cries, Hey Rama, your feet are so tender and soft. How did you walk in the Aranyam, Rama, when you had for 14 years? And he had a Paduka, and then Bharata came and took that Paduka away also and did Paduka Pattabhisheka. So, did you walk barefoot? How did you walk barefoot? In, with the thorns and all those stones and pebbles and everything in the forest. So, it seems a Bhakta cries, thinking how much Bhagavan's feet must have been hurt by that. So, this is the emotion or love towards Bhagavan. Anyway, next one. We will read the meaning and we will conclude here. 80 we couldn't do. It's okay. We will do in the next class when we meet. O Bhagavan Shambhu, your divine footsteps are so light and delicate that they gracefully move within the lotus-like minds of yogis. How then could those same tender feet have struck the hard, unyielding chest of Yama, shattering it like a door? My mind is overwhelmed with this thought. How could such exquisite, gentle feet perform such an act? O all-pervading one, grant me the vision to behold your sacred feet with my own eyes, so that I may gently massage them with my hands, offering my humble service and devotion. Like we know, Pada Sevanam is one of the important kinds of bhakti. Nityai yogi. Sorry. Nityai yogi manas sarojadala sanchara kshamastvat kramaha Shambho tena katham kathorayamaradvakshah kavatakshatihi Atyantam mridulam twadanghriyugalam hame manashchintayatyetallochana gocharam kuru vibho hastena samvahaye. Okay, please practice these verses. We will conclude with Shanti Mantraha. सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः